This right here is a 12-year-old bottle of cool water. It's one of my very first fragrances. This right here is about a 14-year-old bottle of Burberry for men. And this, other than being one of the greatest tapping triggers on the planet, is an 18-year-old bottle of CK1. No, I've seen a lot of videos that I just think are just flat out wrong on this topic. Do fragrances expire? Now, the reason why I'm so interested in this topic, and you should be too, is because if fragrances expire in a few years, then I'm just collecting paperweights. I'm collecting, it's the same thing as like collecting milk. You know, once it goes quote unquote bad, then I've just put all this money and all this effort into collecting bottles. The bottles are pretty, but they're not worth nearly what I paid for them. So I've never thought that it was legit. I always thought fragrances expiring, that makes no sense. I thought of it like this, there are ways that they can make milk last months and months and months. They don't. Why? Why would they? When you make something last longer or forever, if you only had one washing machine or one refrigerator, well, now Mayfair and whatever company, Whirlpool, is out of business, right? If you only had one pair of shoes, tennis shoes, for the rest of your life, or basketball shoes, then Jordan's out, right, for the rest of your life. Things are not made to last because it decreases the supply and the demand. People make money off of you buying fragrances. So why would they tell you it's one and done? Buy it once, it lasts forever. So, but that is not enough for me. Obviously, I want to actually see if the fragrances do break down over time. So in this video, I'm gonna be testing this and this, but I have my Burberry here. Got that when I was a cringe high schooler, and I thought I had game. I had like middle school almost. I think probably middle school. And I have this. This is a new Burberry that I borrowed from somebody because I did not want to go and buy another Burberry. And I'm gonna be comparing them side by side. This 13-year-old fragrance and this new fragrance to see. And I'm sure there's going to be some variations. The batch might have changed a little bit, but I'm interested to see performance and projection. So I'm going to spray each on my skin, give it some time, and then report later on how they did. So let's go ahead and jump right in to CK1. 18 years old, man. 18 and a half, if that matters. And these fragrances, I swear, if y'all like tapping triggers, man, they have the best tapping triggers. These CK1 Aqua di Gio frosted glass. Now, here's what most fragrance companies say. They say 3 years on average. 3 years. And by the way, I know how old they are because they all have batch numbers. So I can just check the batch number. So that's how I know how old they are. But 3 years, they say, is the expiration. Now, what do they say happens afterwards? Do they say that you're going to get sick and die? No. What do they say? Well, they don't really say. So you kind of have to go to scientists, chemists. Okay, what happens supposedly when the fragrance gets a certain age? And there's not really a great explanation for that. Some people say you expose it to age, it gets older, breaks down, so it's not as strong. But what does that mean? Some people say you expose it to heat, it breaks down. Some people say you expose it to direct light, it breaks down. And CK1, it's just old as dirt, but I don't think it really had a whole lot of those other ones. But I will say, I didn't even know that I had this. I had this in the bottom of some pull-out drawer in the bathroom, which is the worst place to keep it because of the humidity, supposedly, right? It also doesn't have a cap on, and they say in order to make your fragrances last longer, make sure it has a cap. Other than putting this in the window like a potted plant and giving it UV light, I've done everything you're not supposed to do with this fragrance, so I'm really interested to see what it smells like. So I got a tester here. We're gonna spray, and we'll go ahead and give it a couple. Atomizer's not great, but it's almost 20 years old. The thing about CK1 too is that these fragrances, the top comes off like that, so lots and lots of air. I've gotten into this guy. Right out the top, it's citrus bomb, aquatic notes, a little bit bitter, but it smells like CK1. You're talking about 18 years old. And I know a lot of the batch variations, a lot of times with these fragrances, they've actually gotten worse. I mean, it's fresh, it's aquatic, it's energetic. It is not a huge performer, but CK1, even right off the assembly line, is not a huge performer. This was back in the 90s when everything was an EDT, and it just wasn't really the performance monsters that we have today with the extracts and the Middle Eastern fragrances, heavy oil concentrations built to project. It wasn't really about that back then. So next we have this fragrance, and you can see, the majority of what happens in the degrading is just like the bottle. See some discoloration here in the cap, but same thing with this guy. This guy been in the bottom of pull-out drawer in the bathroom. Everything you're not supposed to do for 10 years. And I was never a huge fan of cool water. And so it just didn't get a whole lot of action. So this is 11 years. It just had its birthday actually 7 days ago. That's what the batch checker says. And I totally missed the paper. Oh man, I will say. Back in the day, this used to have a huge alcohol burn. A huge twinge, I think is what they call it. A huge in your face. It does not have that anymore. But it smells a little off. I will say this one does smell just a tad off. But like I said, man, I've never been a super huge fan of cool water. Just never was a huge fan of it. This is a quote-unquote clone of Green Irish Tweed. And it's still coming through loud and clear. Even though it's a little bit weird, it's a little bit off, it's still coming through loud and clear. Just like the CK1. So, would I wear either of these? No. But the reason why I have them in my collection right now is because I didn't wear either of these. So, it's the reason why they're still here. And I just keep them around. It helps that they're very, very inexpensive fragrances as well. So, now what I'm going to do is, the really interesting one is this guy, Burberry. So, this guy, literally everything that they say don't do to a fragrance, I have done. Extreme cold, extreme heat. And this was also my car fragrance for a good long while. So exposed to direct sunlight as well. Everything, no cap, everything they say don't do, I've done it to this guy. And I'm interested to see. So we got 2 tester strips, but I'm also gonna spray it on skin as well and test them out. So this is first. What's funny is that some of these new atomizers don't even spray, and these things are just kicking in. So this is a very spicy masculine fragrance. Yeah, it lacks some of that punch, that mentholated kind of punch that it used to have, but it's got this bergamot and mint. The mint is not as strong as I remember it being. Geranium, sandalwood moss, and some cedar wood in the base. I'm not going to take too long here because I want to test these openers side by side of the new guy. Atomizer, obviously different. Whoa. What? I can't even smell it. It's so much more neutered than this older batch. This older batch is spicy, it's in your face, it's bold, it's loud, it's in control. This newer batch sucks. Oh my gosh, this sucks. So that's another thing too, right? Is that not only is it longevity and performance, but some of these newer batches are just awful. Creed does this a lot. They water down their ingredients. As it's sitting, I'm getting more of those notes right off the top. I don't care if it doesn't have that huge mint blast anymore. This 12-year-old Burberry just annihilated this other Burberry. Wow. That's not even close. I don't know what Burberry did. The older version, the older batch definitely gets it. Okay. So, CK1 is pretty good. The cool water. Actually, as it sits, it's getting better. But the star of the show are these Burberrys. So, what I'm going to do is, through the magic of cinema editing, we're going to take a second, literally just a second for you, but I'm going to spray on my wrist. And we're just going to see if the performance and the projection go down. And this obviously is not a huge scientific experiment. Bit of bro science, if you will, but I'm just really interested in seeing if a 12-year-old fragrance can keep up with a brand new fragrance. So let's go ahead and apply, shall we? So here's what I'm going to do. Right wrist gets the old one. The atomizer was also better back then. That's still good, man. That still holds up. Left wrist. Oh gosh, that was a wet one. That was like sitting next to Shamu at SeaWorld. Oh my gosh. Oh, that new batch sucks. Oh my gosh, that new batch sucks. Huge alcohol blast, but muted notes. The right one smells so much better to me. I'm glad that I did not get this, the newer one. I have this one in my, and it's not like I wear it anyways, but okay, it's the old one. The new one I can still barely smell on my wrist, so this should be an interesting one. Again, next to the magic of movie editing, coming back to you in 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are back. It's been about, let's say, 5 hours since I've applied it. So right off the bat, It performed very well. So the one thing for sure that I can see that perhaps we've been talking about is correct is I don't think this one had much of those top notes anymore now. Top notes seem very delicate. They actually say, I know when I first started, you like spray your wrist and then you rub together, and they say, don't do that because you're destroying the top notes. So top notes are pretty delicate apparently. But I think that the top notes were missing a little bit, and that's kind of what they say if the fragrances are exposed to extreme heat, the top notes basically go away, and it's just kind of nothing but the mid notes. But here's the thing. This and this smelled better. It went on better, but this within probably 15 minutes, it was dead even. There was no difference between the two pretty much at all. Now, both of them lasted for about 2 hours, pretty good. I don't use this fragrance, and so there wasn't this nose blind that I was getting. Like when you spray a fragrance, you adjust to it. Typically, if you spray a fragrance, at least for me, that is unfamiliar, you usually have, the whole day of applications where you don't get nose blind to it just because it's unfamiliar. But about 2.5 hours, and I'll be honest, this one did last longer, but not that much. At around 2.5 hours, it was about a skin scent, meaning that it didn't perform well. It wasn't projecting, but for about an hour and a half, yeah, it was doing good. But here's the thing, these are EDTs, so I didn't expect any different. EDTs, it's just one of those things that I think that's probably the best that I was going to get either way. This is another aromatic, light fragrance, and this fragrance itself is not for that anyways. I would love to see like what a 11-year or 12-year-old bottle of like Club de Nuit, like an absolute performance monster would do, because these just, even on their best days, are not performance monsters. But my overall question was, do these old fragrances, or do these fragrances that quote unquote go past their expiration date, are they good? Can you wear them? Do they stack up to these? And unequivocally, yes, 100%. The newer ones, I think, perform a little bit better, perhaps a little bit less degrading in the top notes, and a little bit better performance. However, I have yet to see a new recipe, a reformulation that improves the fragrance. Typically, anytime something gets reformulated, it's to cut notes, make it less than what it was. And it suffers. So any progress this made in performance, it lost to this in just overall notes, overall recipe. This smells better. And I think that's what you're going to get with a lot of these formulas if you have a fragrance that lasts 10 or 15 years or longer. The original is going to be more complex, more rich, better notes. I do believe that there is a break to where these fragrances, the maceration doesn't really help the scent profile anymore. So it's not like it's going to keep getting better and better and better, but there are certain things in these vintage formulas that the new ones just don't have. Creed is a great example of that. The original Creed, the original Davidoffs, they fragrances expire? No. No. Do you have to run out after 2 or 3 years and replace yours? No. Will you be dissatisfied if you go out and you get a newer formulation? Probably. Probably. So, there are some things that go on, and I'm not saying that there aren't. And if I were to wear this side by side and try to fool a robot that had beyond perfect sense of smell, maybe the robot would be like, no, I can tell the difference. That's not what you're talking about here, though. You were talking about being in the world, in the everyday world. Does it, to the human nose, smell the same or better? Yes. Yes, it did. So, we get lost in the minutiae of scientific theory and biophysics and chemistry and valence bonds. Is that even a thing? Is a valence electrons and chemical bonds? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. Chemistry was a long time ago. But do your fragrances still perform well after the quote-unquote expiration date? And that answer is yes. And the thing that I was thinking about as well is that this was abused, exposed to heat, extreme temperatures, sunlight. Think about your fragrances that you keep in temperature-controlled environments with a cap in dark places. I think it should be just fine, man. Just fine. Never met anybody that said, well, it's been 3 years. I better just throw out my fragrance and go get another one. I never heard anyone say that, but here are these people, so-called influencers on YouTube, talk about it, and it just drives me crazy because I think that it is just a ploy to get you to buy more fragrances. And is there a difference? Absolutely, there's a difference. Is that difference going to be so great that you can't use your original fragrances? No. So, hope you all enjoyed this. I enjoyed it, and I enjoy doing some videos a little bit different like this. So,